Hello, Matt.
Hi, John. How are you?
Okay, I'm not sure. I hope my video, okay, the video is working.
Yes, it
It
works.
was not working earlier today in other Zoom meetings, but working now. Good.
Yes, it works now.
So how many attendees are we expecting?
Not that many for today. I'm not sure why. Because it's beginning of the the semester.
Yeah.
We have about 10 people signed up. But we send out the Zoom in our groups and hoping like more parents will see it and join. And Interestingly, the parents who signed up for the night seminar webinar are the students from the summer,
really?
the summer students. You see, Joey's. I mean, Joey is
The research or the
research.
writing or both?
I only recognize the students from the research, right? So
Well,
Joey,
that's
right?
good.
I
That's
remember
good.
that Joey. I think Joey, it.
Oh yeah, Joey's.
Yeah, hi.
Well,
Hi,
there's
Joey. Right. Okay.
Joey's an overachiever. I'm surprised she's not working on her PhD already.
And she is only 9th grade.
I
She's
know.
only 9th grade. Right. So how amazing is that? But she graduated first place, from middle school.
Right.
So she is like the outstanding student.
Right. But the special thing about Joey isn't just that she's such a great student, but she seems, she comes off as a very sensible, balanced young woman. She's not totally frenzied about all her tasks. She has good control. That's my impression anyway. I might be wrong, but
all good things. So,
yeah, all good
so
things.
Right. Okay, so let's give it a few more minutes to see, anyone else joining. Yeah, another thing, I mean, like not too many attentions, like because we sent out we sent out the seminar pretty late. We sent out the print. I think we give it like about 2 days ago.
Right.
So I talked to you, say let's do this. So we didn't really give much time for the parents to prepare. And it's not weekend. Right? Usually, we usually do on Friday.
You usually do it on a Saturday or Sunday, right?
We don't really do it Sunday. We usually do it on
Friday
or Saturday. But the reason you want to do today is because it's coming up. This context actually you need to be submitted by mid-November.
November 17th, I saw. Right?
Yeah, and the coaching is going to start this weekend, right? So that's why I'm thinking I want to give this exercise, give this presentation at least for the parents and the students who might be interested in our program to get a chance to know you, and get a chance to know about what it's about, right? And then for them to get more familiar with you, and then if they have any concern or question, they may ask. So today for tonight is more it's really focused on the parents who might be interested on writing, right? So having high school students to writing. So that's why I'm thinking is even they just not we can, and we still want to do it, and really appreciate that, John. So I know you really have very very busy schedule today, so you just went back home. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah. This seminar would be good for the students in my research summer course, because it's a whole different thing, right? researching and
我知
writing
道我大概什么时候
anyway.
Yeah, so I was trying to mute the parents when they join. I mean, like maybe they didn't mute. We set it up to automatic mute, so you know that's why I'm trying to mute them. But everybody, if you have any question, you can feel free to put your questions in chat. And obviously tonight we are going to speak in English, so it's going to be different from our usual seminar is to speak in Chinese. So unless you want John to speak in German, so otherwise you want to speak in English, right?
Or Spanish.
Or Spanish. The only Spanish I know is Holland. So you know, I'm not going to interview you for that.
That's a good start.
That's a good start. Yeah, for tonight we're going to have the seminar more like a fireside chat. So basically, I'm going to ask John a bunch of questions, and then John trying to answer. Oh, let John adjusting the light. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was better. I can see you better before.
With the lights on.
Yeah. Now I cannot. I can barely see you.
Let's try that one. Is that better?
Yeah, it's much better. Yeah, it's much better.
That's better.
Yes, that's better. All right. So, okay. So John, so let's get started then. Let's get started. So first question first. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Like what your background, like in terms of teaching, coaching, writing. I know you have a lot of interesting stuff, you know, like you do. It's very different than most people.
Yeah, well, I've always been a teacher, you know, and even if it wasn't my primary job, I was always teaching aside whatever else I was doing. My teaching started when I was in the military. I was in the American Army for a number of years, and I became a teacher there. So that was my first experience. I was actually teaching in Spanish for 2 years. And so that was the beginning of learning how to put together an academic program, and how to interact with students and engage students and get them to think and to work hard, and to learn. I have since then have taught on the university or high school level on 4 different continents, North America, South America, Europe, and Africa. Not Asia, not China. That's my big blank on the map. But I have experience teaching all kinds of students, all different kinds of backgrounds. And just up to this summer, I was teaching quite a bit for the Ivy Review, and got a lot of experience in dealing with high school students, and helping them prepare and develop skills for college. I basically, most of my academic experience has been in business studies, MBA courses, and then both graduate and undergraduate courses at NYU, New York University, but a number of other universities around the world as well. Mostly on topics of economics and politics. and business, but also I have supervised a lot of research with students over many, many years. And so I have become a specialist in advising undergraduate students on their senior theses, and graduate students on their graduate thesis. And that combined with a lot of writing experience of my own, writing and research, I'm pretty well published in lots of magazines and newspapers, journal articles, that sort of thing. And so that personal experience and my experience teaching students positions me pretty well to help students to learn how to write. You know, when I was a college student, I had great professors who really taught me how to write. And it was difficult. I had deadlines every Friday. Every Friday, I had a number of written assignments to complete. But it turned me into a good writer. And what I always tell students is no matter what you're going to pursue in college or in a career, doesn't matter if it's in the sciences, mathematics, you know, whatever the topic might be, having good writing skills, being able to communicate communicate with the written word in an above average level will always give you an edge, no matter what field you go into. It doesn't matter. Everything requires good written expression. If you're going to be a scientist who needs to write applications for research grants, if you're going to be a business person who needs to write applications for bank loans, if you're going to be an anthropologist writing results of your research, no matter who you are or what you do, if you can learn to write well, it's going to really give you an advantage. But yeah, so I've had a varied career. I've worked as a journalist. I've written as a journalist. I've written television documentaries, television programs. I've done a lot of different kinds of writing, business writing, and so I have a very varied background that I can bring to help students improve those skills.
Thank you, John. So I want to add another thing is like what fascinated me about John is he knows a lot of stuff I don't know. So that really fascinated me, like whenever, I talk about a topic, like he always said, Matt, you know, something like that, that's like maybe like artists, in Africa, like what does he do, that's amazing. But that's really that's really like fascinating me, like John is really like very knowledgeable. And that's also another important thing in writing, in my opinion, is that you need to know a lot of stuff. You need to know a lot of stuff. You need to read a lot of stuff, experience a lot of stuff for you to be a good writer. Okay, but let's bring it back a little bit on the narrative.
My mother all my life, my mother said, you need to be a contestant on Jeopardy. You will always win the Jeopardy game show. So she always,
yeah,
I could make millions on Jeopardy, but I never did. I never did.
You should go to there. You should go to. All right. So let's bring it back a little bit on this context, right? So it's one of the journal John wrote for, right? New York Times. So New York Times have tons of the writing context for high school students. So the specific one we're talking about is called the New York Times annual personal narrative writing context. So what does it do? It asks you to write about your personal stories, real life stories, in about like in less than 600 words, right? So it's not fiction. It is not wait, why it becomes, hold on, let me try to spotlight John again. Okay, all right. So yeah, so it is about the personal experience, right? So the title, the requirements, it is to tell a story about, let me see here, right? So it's about to write a personal narrative of your own about a meaningful life experience, right? Meaningful life experience. So I want to bring it back here a little bit more on this type of writing, right, John? So because our program will be based on mostly based on this context, right? So we have a lot of purpose on writing, right? So but I always think it's good to have a concrete purpose of writing. So you have a goal, right? You have a goal. As I say, our goal is to submit our story. For this context, that really gives us a lot of motivation to write, right? To write, right? So in terms of these requirements, to write a personal narrative of your own about meaningful life experience. So how do you see these requirements, John? So, or what do you think it is a meaningful life experience? So does it have to be very dramatic, like we have 911, so, like 20 years ago, like the airplane hijack, hitting the World Trade Center or something like that? Or how do you think, or how should we think about, like the meaningful life experience?
Well, that's a very good question, and the answer is it's a very individual situation, because meaningful life experiences have different meanings to different people. So, the key thing about this New York Times contest, or any written exercise such as college application essay, it's really the main thing is if it's a dramatic experience or a not so dramatic experience. That doesn't matter. What matters is what it meant to the writer, and how it influenced the writer's life, how it influenced. So it could be a big thing, but it could be a small thing. So that isn't so important. What's important is how is it a milestone in someone's life? Maybe a turning point, maybe a moment where the writer saw the world in a new and different way. Maybe a moment where the writer learn something. The writer usually has to portray the experience of learning a lesson and then applying that lesson to their life. That's one good approach. But there's many different approaches. What's most important in a 600-word essay, and it is much more difficult to write 600 words than 6,000 words. And what I mean by that is that when you have a limit of 600 words, that's not very long. That's maybe 6 paragraphs or less. You have to choose your words very carefully. You have to learn not to waste any words or space, that everything you're writing is absolutely relevant. It has to be, like all writing, it has to have a good structure. It needs to have a good introduction that draws the reader in immediately. It has to have a good conclusion that leaves the reader satisfied and not with too many outstanding questions. And it has to have, and in between that introduction and that conclusion, there needs to be what I call a flow, that one paragraph flows into the next paragraph, flows into the next paragraph. That takes practice. That takes a lot of practice at writing and rewriting, how you organize your thoughts between the introduction and the conclusion. So 600, and the thing is, unlike the college application, the common college application essay, where you're given a choice of prompts to answer, questions to answer, this New York Times contest, there are no prompts. You can write about anything you want. So really, the first task is to decide what you're going to write about. And that is always something I work with students right away in the beginning, identifying what the topic should be, often narrowing it down, because every student I've known for the last 25 years of teaching students always start out with too broad. They always start out too broad, too general. We always, almost all the time, have to work at narrowing down, becoming more focused, especially with a short 600-word essay. You need to be like laser focused on something very specific that you want to express in those 600 words. So choosing that topic is obviously the first task. The topic can change as one works at the writing, because sometimes when you're writing and thinking and writing and thinking, a new path may unfold, a new way to go in a little bit different direction, this way or that way than originally thought. That's normal. So you do have to stay a bit flexible. But what I always urge students to do is to find a topic that is a right combination of something that they're very interested in, something that they want to explore more for themselves, an event, an issue, something that happened, something that didn't happen, some event in their lives. And now if they're going to write about it, that's a luxury. They're taking extra time, special time to examine this. So it should be something that students think about often and maybe have a question and haven't come up with an answer. Well, a good way to answer a question that a student might have about their life or about something that happened in their life, a good way to find an answer to that is to write about it. So that's one good way to channel students towards picking a topic, to answer an unanswered question in their life. But there's another element to picking a topic, And that's something that they're passionate about, something that gets them excited, that they want to write about. And that's important, because writing is difficult. Writing is a task. It's something you have to work at, and some days you're happy to write and some days you're not, but even the days you're not, you still have to do it. And so if you're doing something that you feel a passion for, that always helps you get through those days when you don't feel like working on it. But if you're passionate about your topic, you're going to work on it anyway. So those are just a few tips about how to get started.
John, I have a question on meaningful life experience, right? So first of all, I mean, like I want to comment it, like, why do you want to join this narrative writing context? It's really very similar to the college application essay. It's going to be around 650 words, and it's going to be asking you to write about your personal experience. And if you can nail the test, you can nail this context, you can nail the college essay as well.
Absolutely.
Really,
Absolutely.
As John mentioned that, the key difference is like, for the context, you can write about anything in your life. For the college essay, so you do have you need to select from, one of the 7 prompts was given to you, right? So there's a bit restriction there. Actually, there's more guidance for you to do. All right. So, but my question to John is, like, when talking about meaningful life experience, does it mean we are going to think about something, the happy moments in our life, or do we think about something not that happy? So for my practice, right? So when I work with the students on college essay, I actually sometimes I don't really ask them, what is the most happiest moment in your life, right? So I start from asking, what is your most awkward moment in your life? Like, so that is something, I just want to hear your opinion on that. Like, how do you think about that? The meaningful life experience. Do you think it is more like about like the more meaningful, more happy moments, or should we come with something, like awkward moments as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has a lot to do. It could be happy, it could be unhappy, it could be something in the middle. But it has more to do with how did it impact your life? How did it, change the way you look at things or think about things? Often a good vehicle is an event that sort of took you by surprise, an unexpected happy or unhappy moment. The unexpected can be a very important element to explore, because that's what life is. I mean, life is a series of, no matter how hard you try to plan your life, there's always going to be unexpected events. You can never plan anything 100%. And so I think that a good essay sort of reveals that a student dealt with this surprise, with this unexpected thing that happened. It could be a good thing, a bad thing, or a good and bad thing. But it's more like, because everybody can try to plan their life. And if it goes according to plan, well, that's not such a big shock, because, well, you planned it. It's how do you handle the unplanned things that can be very, very interesting writing, and revealing something special about the writer. See, the thing about writing, and both for the college application essay, and I would suspect also for this contest, is that the writer has to be willing to make themselves somewhat vulnerable, that they made a mistake, they have a weakness, they made a bad decision, they did something wrong, whatever, and to show that vulnerability. But then it's important to show how they turn that vulnerability, that weakness, into a strength. That's another very good method in effectively capturing the interest of a reader. So, you have to be a little daring. You have to take some risks when you write. Good writers always take risks. Good writers always show some vulnerabilities. Good writers are also very well organized writers. Like I said, this flow, the structure is so important. But at the same time, you have to balance that structure and that flow with some creative approaches as well. Doing something a bit different than what everybody else is going to do. Doing something a bit creative that will set you apart from all the other essays. So those are all kinds of things to explore.
Thanks, John. So let me answer the question, like from the chat. So can this essay be used as a common application essay as well? It is. You can. Actually, in the official website, in the New York Times annual narrative context website, they said that you can use it. You can use it as your college application essay.
Yeah.
So that you can do that. So you're not going to waste time. So this is really like a bird kills, a stone kills two birds, right? Stone kills two birds thing. And in terms of deadlines, submitted is about like mid-November. I think John says it's November 17. I can't remember. Yeah, November 17. But the thing is that you can use it for any other purpose as well, right? You can use it for the scholastic narrative writing context. You can use it in any context as well. So as long as you have a story, so you can submit it for multiple competitions.
Although I would always recommend that, every time if you develop this essay, to always be open to changing it a little bit, adapting it a little bit, improving it a little bit for all the other things you may use it for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
John, so you mentioned something very interesting about taking some risk, right? Taking some risk. So I see that as like the voice. So sometimes we write about something, like we want to be vulnerable, right? So and vulnerable, and also sometimes we have people concerned that if I tell my real feeling, my personal opinion on certain things, right? So am I going to get judged by others? Do I rather to be more political correct, or more like in the, or many people will agree with us, right? So instead of, like being like the outlier of the society. So how do you view this thing, like using your own voice and balance with, like the common, the political correct thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it has to do with tone, right? What is the tone? What does your voice sound like in this essay? So, you don't have to be politically correct. You can take maybe an unpopular stance on something. You might want to say, I think all vaccines should be banned. Well, you can say that, but the essay has to sound like a reasonable explanation. You can't get real polemical. You can't sound like you're screaming or angry about things. And, and it's what's always important in writing is to always expect criticism. That's one of the things that you think about as you write is, well, if I say this, what will some people think? And thinking what they would think helps you write, because then you're writing not just to yourself or to everybody who believes exactly what you believe. You're writing to everybody. You're writing to people who don't agree with you, or writing with people who do not like what you're saying. But an effective tool for any writer is to anticipate what those people might think or say, and then present and write something that will address those things ahead of time. That's what a good writer does. A good writer just doesn't show one point of view. A good writer may have one point of view, but a good writer includes the different points of view and engages and explains why their point of view is more advantageous. But yeah, so you have to, like I said, it's tone. You never want to sound in these essay situations, you never want to sound like you're like everything. You don't want to sound overconfident. You don't want to sound cocky, like, oh, I'm like the smartest kid in my class, and oh, I know better than anybody else. That kind of tone you really want to avoid, right?
And that's exactly the same thing we need to avoid in our college essay as well, right? So,
right, exactly. Yeah.
And the interesting thing, right, John, I think I bring a very good point, right? So when you tell a story, you should not really like tell what is it. You need to be able to use detail to show what that is, right? So you don't really say that, like, I'm the best student, in the class. You need to use details to show that, like, you are the students you are the best student in the room, right? So that's more like that's the key about the personal writing, right? Telling a story. Don't really tell people what that is. You need to show something, to people, right? John, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, what you want, and see, that's where this point that I raised about creativity, it becomes important. You never want to hit your reader on the head with a hammer. You never want to, keep hitting the readers with a hammer and saying, this is what you should think, and this is the way it is, and this is the way it is. No. A hammer is never a good instrument when communicating. You want to be maybe set the story up in a creative way. There's many different ways of doing that, so that you're telling a story, you're making a point, but you're doing it in a entertaining way that draws the reader in, like they want to read the end of the story. And I'm telling you, in a contest, that's what it's all about, because they're going to get thousands and thousands of entries, tens of thousands of entries. They're only going to read the ones that draw them in and make them read to the end. They want to read it. They want to finish it. They want to know how this essay ends. Those are the ones that have a chance at winning. And so that's why setting it up and sort of drawing the reader in, capturing their interest, not alienating them by making forceful statements and hitting them on the head with a hammer, but drawing them in and making them want to read to the end. And that's what a good essay is.
Great. And we have another
Wow.
question from Sophia. Is Mr. Zinda going to be the professor of this program? So yes, so that's why we have John here. So some of the key things, we be teaching the program. I think Jordan mentioned already, right? So how to be creativity, how to tell a story of a small moment in your life, but you'll be able to reflect on your experience and give the reader some takeaways, right? So how do you use detail to show, but not really like telling, what you are, right? And how to be able to write in your own tone, in your own voice, right? How do you be able to use dialogue effectively? How do you be able to bring the readers into the scene rather than just explaining, what's going on? Or how do you be able to use transitioning? Right? How do you be able to have a flow of it? How do you be able to bring your original idea? How to be creativity? How do you be able to be creative in your story? Right. So those are the things that will be taught by John. And maybe John, maybe let's talk about like your way to coach students on this program. So last summer, remember, like we have we trying to do small personal one-on-one coaching, right? So more like customized coaching, to writing. And then we got some objection from the parents saying that, we need to have more lectures, we have more lessons instead of the one-on-one, like the editing thing, right? So, and you kind of like, we have to compromise a little bit, last summer, right? So, but what do you think? What do you think? So what is your teaching style going to be right now? So you still think you're going to do more individual, customized, like the editing at suggestion, or more like a lecture, or how do you going to organize the program?
Well, when it comes to writing, there are some lectures, of course, on techniques, on things, from choosing how to choose your topic, how to organize, different techniques of writing, techniques of storytelling. There's different ways of doing that. But a lot of it is, just practice. It's just writing a first draft and a second draft and a third draft, and as many drafts as there's time for, and because every time it will get better, there's no doubt about it. Which is why I would say to the person who was asking about using the New York Times essay for other things like the college application essay or other essays, yes, but you should never be satisfied. Whatever your latest draft of the New York Times essay was, that can always be drafted again for the next event. So a lot of it is exercise. So in the beginning, yes, lectures, sharing techniques, ways of thinking with the students, but then it's more about the student writing and me giving them feedback and helping them do the next draft. If it's in a classroom setting with a number of students, the advantage there is they can get feedback not just from me, but from the other students. If I'm just doing a one-on-one coaching situation, well, then the advantage is, you know, you have me all to yourself to exclusively work on your essay. So, you know, there's no, you know, there's different scenarios. But I always like, if I have a class, if it's a seminar of 5, 6, 7, 8 students, whatever, I always try to make it very collaborative. I want all the students to help each other. I want all the students to give feedback, give their impressions of their fellow students' writing and their ideas. That's always important. As I always tell my students when on a first class of a semester, that, you know, there's 3 streets of learning going on in the classroom. That you know, the students are learning from me. I'm actually learning from the students all the time, which is one of the reasons why I love teaching. And the third and really important street are the students learning from each other. So that's an important dimension to it as well.
Thank you, John. Let me see if we have any other questions. Okay, so other questions. So how do you think students can get better at writing? So besides joining the program, right? So we know joining the program will help. So, but in general, right? In general, what are some other ways or some effective ways, in your experience, will help the students to get better at writing?
Well, it's always good. You can always improve your writing by reading, right? Reading good writers, you know, reading good prose, reading really compelling essays that you find in the media. And so that's one way. It's just like reading, you know, consuming other people's writing, and, you know, and find writers that you really feel a connection with, and you really understand what they're trying to express, and you really appreciate the way they do it. So, you know, so that's one way. It's just, you know, consuming a lot of reading and of good writers. That's how you learn how to write, is by looking at how good writers write. You know, it's one of the best ways to get a feeling of you know, what kind of writer you want to become. And so, you know, I've had a number of influences in my life of different writers. But of course, you never want to copy the style. You want to integrate or be inspired by other people's style. The real goal, of course, is to develop your own style. So that's one way. You know, the other, you know, another way is keep a daily journal. Don't go to bed at night until you've written a paragraph about what happened in your day. And you know, making you write every day. You know, I remember I had a poetry teacher who said, you know, for you to really appreciate poetry, a lot of people don't appreciate poetry. They don't understand poetry. They think it's too hard. They're scared of poetry. But he had really good advice. He said, you know, I'm not asking you to fall in love with poetry. I'm just asking you to read one poem every day in your life. Just read one poem. Just take 5 minutes every day in your life and read one poem. And so, you know, that's sort of like, you know, anything that you want to get good at, or anything that you want to learn how to appreciate and to enjoy, is you set goals. You set a daily goal. You write a paragraph in your personal journal every day. You have a weekly goal. Maybe you have a school term goal where you want to get, 2 articles in your school newspaper. You set goals, and then you stick to them and you work at them. Is that a good answer, Matt?
I think so. I think it's a very good answer. And you also mentioned that the first point is to learn from other good writers.
Right.
So do you have any books to recommend, or do you have any good writers to recommend for the students to start?
Well, that's all a personal choice. I mean, when it comes to essays, you probably want, they're not even short stories, right? Short stories are not essays. They're much longer than an essay. I think a 600-word essay is, you probably should look for writers that write like weekly columns in magazines and newspapers, in which they're talking about something. It could be about politics, it could be about cooking, it could be about social media, it could be about whatever. And find somebody that you enjoy reading on a regular basis. So yeah, I mean, I can make recommendations to students, but it all depends on what their interests are, right?
Yeah, it's
and-
like a personal thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Agree.
I mean, if they're, I'm interested in politics and economics, so I could list all kinds of people that I admire who write opinion pieces or columns, but I think it's best to sort of explore that with the student themselves when I know what it is they like. Now, I could just add that there are a couple reference books that every student should have if they take this seminar or not. But through high school, through college, it's always good to get on your bookshelf the Chicago Manual of Style, which is sort of the Bible of writing style. And then there's also, that's the Chicago Manual of Style. And then there's also sort of the classic book that every writer refers to before college, during college, and all their lives. And it's simply called The Manual for Writers by Kate Turabian, Turabian, Kate Turabian. I think it's in its 12th edition now. That's just a classic book that is a very good reference book in helping people write the best that they can. The Chicago Manual of Style is more of technique. It sets down the rules of the best English writing there is. And so those are 2 examples of reference books that would be worth an investment and something that you would use the rest of your life, actually. And I'm not getting a commission on those book sales, by the way.
Let's put the link. Let's put the link. Let's get like the affiliated link. You can sell that book. Just
Right.
kidding. Just kidding.
Right.
But for the students interested, I'm going to post the recommendation, the reference book John recommended into our group. So you want to take a look, then you can take a look on your own. So probably we want to put the link, right? So we are not getting any commission, so we just want to put the book name and the writer. So that was actually my last question, for today's fireside chat with John. For the students who are interested in joining the New York Times personal narrative context, and we want to learn how to writing with John, so we can contact our colleagues. So and also our program is going to get started this Saturday. This Saturday, I kind of forgot when. But it's going to be this Saturday. If you contact our colleagues, so they will tell you the exact time, the exact schedule, what is going to be taught, anything related to the logistic. All right. So if we don't have any other questions, that will be the end of tonight.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it was nice to meet everybody, and I wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you, John. Thank you, and thank you, every students and parents taking the time to join us. And hope to see you next time. Have a good
Okay.
night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
you.
Good night.
Bye.